All right. Hello, everyone out there. This is Tommy Valentine. I am the Executive Director at Historic Athens. We want to thank you for joining us today. This is episode 8 of This Moment in History, COVID-19 in Athens, Georgia. If you'd like to see any of the previous broadcasts, just go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Historic Athens. Go to videos and you can see some of our past interviews. Today, we'll be interviewing a very special guest, Athens-Clarke County Commissioner Tim Denson. We're really looking forward to speaking to him. I just want to make a quick note, which is if you have a question during today's broadcast, a comment, word of encouragement, or anything that you want to be part of this historic discussion, please submit it as a comment below this video. As long as we're still live, we'll be able to broadcast it on air. Just to show you what that looks like, Matt Davenport jumped in right as we started streaming and said, "Hello, Athens." So hello right back at you, Matt. And then similarly, this was a comment I just made in the section below where it says, have a question or comment during today's broadcast, submit it below and we'll share it on air. So very simple. And we hope that you'll help be a part of this discussion so that we can keep it interactive. We do want to thank today's sponsors. So this week has been sponsored by the Delamater family, Dan and Corey. We appreciate that. Each week of the 11 weeks, we have been fortunate enough to find a different sponsor that is helping us record this moment. We want to explore and document this moment in history. At the conclusion of this series, thanks to the generosity of our sponsors, we'll be able to contribute this complete 55-episode series to local research institutions and libraries. And that'll include the questions and comments that we share on air. So we hope that you'll do that. A little later into the program, we'll invite you to become a member of Historic Athens if you'd like. We're a local 501c3 nonprofit that for 52 years has been working to celebrate and conserve community heritage here in Athens, Georgia. With that said, I want to go ahead and bring our guest on. Tim is no stranger to many of you. You've probably voted for him for maybe more than one office. He has been a community organizer, an activist, a musician. He is currently serving as an elected official. He may even have been a bookseller that you bought your favorite book from. And so we really appreciate all the perspectives he's going to bring to this conversation. And so with that said, we'll go ahead and bring Tim in. So let's see here. Great. All right, Tim, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Great. So, Tim, we've started in different places with each of these discussions. I think the first thing I'd like to start with today, though, is just ensuring that our audience really knows you and your work. And that audience is both the audience that's tuning in right now. The average one of these videos has been viewed by about 1,500 people per video. But it's also going to be viewed hopefully decades from now. And so you may be dealing with an audience that wants to get to know who Tim Denson was now. So can you tell us a little bit about your work and your history here in Athens?
Sure. I moved here to Athens back in 2004 from growing up down in rural South Florida. And I actually came here because of the music scene. I was running a little cooperative record label down in Florida and in college. And, I knew the mythology of Athens. I had fallen in love with Athens. I had visited here, I'd gone to shows here. And so I moved here then. And over the years, somehow morphed from just being this musician and artist who was, loving the life of being able to mix with so many other creative types here in Athens. And working at a bookstore, working retail, doing service industry kind of stuff, like so many here. And then in 2011, when the Occupy Wall Street movement happened, it really inspired me to get more involved in a community organizing aspect and a political aspect. And that moment really changed my life with us having Occupy Athens and actually camping out at the UGA Arch there for a number of weeks, months actually. Really getting to develop my my political outlook, my community outlook, getting to really have a better understanding of economic, racial, and social justice, and the systemic systems that have kept us from able to have those kinds of justice. And that all led from one thing to another to me somehow. And every time I say it, it still just sounds insane to me. But for running for mayor back in 2014, and I mean, a big part of that was just because of there was a group that was with Occupy. We needed to have somebody to run, and my last name happened to be the same last name of our current mayor at that time, Nancy Denson. And I think that was one of the biggest reasons that it was me and not somebody else running. And of course, out of that, after that campaign, though I want to put on the record, I got second place, so I feel pretty good about that one. My concession speech on election night that night was also the announcement of the creation of a new political organizing organization called Athens for Everyone, that I was able and honored to serve as the president and organizing coordinator for a number of years, until running for this office here that I now hold on the county commission. And through all that work, it was just great experiences being able to organize along with the local NAACP and Moral Monday Georgia and the Economic Justice Coalition and the Athens Anti-Discrimination Movement. You just can be able to organize alongside with all those kind of individuals. And I think just being a part of building this larger progressive movement that I think we see now here in Northeast Georgia, that I honestly say thank goodness we have, because I think it's one of the reasons that we've been able to deal with this this pandemic maybe better than some other communities have, because we're better organized than most communities. We have a lot of folks very engaged. We have a lot of folks who have already made those connections with each other with different organizations. And so we didn't have to do necessarily all of that bottom level work to start getting things like, food distributions happening, to get things like, housing aid happening. We already had some of that basic work already done.
So, Tim, you mentioned that on your path to serving as commissioner, that there were these kind of odd junctures. For example, you happening to have the same last name, you being familiar with the mythology of Athens and that bringing you here. If I remember correctly, I think you told me once that even your involvement in activism started in kind of a random way. Wasn't there some story about you pulling over at a Taco Bell, or there was something like that?
Yeah, this was back whenever I was in college and I was living down in Fort Myers, Florida. So I grew up in a little town called Clewiston, agricultural town. A lot of people think of Florida as Disney World and stuff, but the central part of Florida, and especially in the South, it's all agriculture. It's farming. My first job ever was working on a cattle farm, and so I was going to school, living in Fort Myers, and I was driving to work down US 41, and drove past the Taco Bell, and the side of the road. I remember if I remember correctly, for some reason I was early to work, so I had time to kill. I think I had my shift screwed up, and I showed up early, and I was like, oh, I'll have to be there for another 2 hours, and I was going somewhere else just to kill some time. And I drove by this Taco Bell, and there was people out with these signs, demanding fair pay. I remember they had like tomatoes on this, like actual signs that had like tomatoes and tomatoes painted on them, and just saying like decent wages for farm workers. And it caught my attention, and I happened to have a little bit of time, and so I decided, was like, well, I'll go in here and get some tacos for lunch and find out what this is going on. I ended up not getting those tacos because before I went in, I was talking to these folks, and they're like, yeah, we're coalition of Immokalee workers, of a coalition of migrant workers who work down there. A lot of them in Immokalee picking tomatoes. And those are the same tomatoes that whenever you go to Wendy's or you go to Taco Bell or go to McDonald's, tomatoes that are on those burgers there were picked by the hands of these migrant workers who are having to fight for just decent enough money to have decent housing and have okay childcare for their kids. And and they've just been exploited for so long. And I was the first time being hit by this realization there. And then the big thing that struck me is the tactic. It was so direct, and these people were I don't want to use the word confident, but they were confident, but they were so passionate, had such a resolve that they knew what they were doing was right. and they felt that so deeply that they were willing to stand on the side of the road and just demand this in front of this business. And they were doing this all over Florida at the time. Um, and they were demanding was an extra 1 cent per pound of tomatoes that was bought from the Taco Bell company and the larger company bought from them. 1 cent per pound. Have that 1 cent go specifically to worker services. And it's like it's so little. It's like, of course they should do this. And so I didn't eat the tacos that day, and that involvement stuck with me. And I kind of followed CIW for a while, and they won that campaign. They won that. They got that extra cent per pound from Taco Bell and from a number of other grocery stores and restaurants. I want to go on the record here and say that Publix and Wendy's still have not done that. Wendy's is their target right now. I have been boycotting Wendy's, even though I like their bacon cheeseburgers. I have not eaten one in a number of years because that is their target now. I have stood in front of Wendy's with those signs demanding those things, just like inspired me at this point 18, 19 years ago.
Right.
And so they're still doing this work, and it was an amazing moment for me that Coalition of Local Workers were doing a tour on the Wendy's one. This was a few years ago, and they came here to Athens, and they did a film screening, and their organizers came and did a talk, and they did a training with Athens for Everyone training from the organizers there about what they were doing, and it was very inspiring. And to me, it was a beautiful connection for me to be able to have. I got to share that story that I'm sharing now with those organizers. I remember one of the women there actually said, like, she's like, I was there. So like, I remember that day. I was part of the tour then, and I remember us going to Fort Myers. So yeah, it's you never know those how important sometimes there's this like chance opportunities or weird things are going to change your life. It's one of the things I love to do is just be able to look back at those odd moments and how they've changed the direction of my life. Again, with Occupy, I mean, my friend Carter Adams is the one that organized the Occupy Athens thing to happen. I remember sitting down at my computer trying to see if somehow I could scrounge enough money to be able to fly to New York so I could be part of the Occupy Wall Street protest there, and then realizing very quickly I did not have enough money to do that. But during that same sitting, getting on Facebook and then coming across an event it was going to be just a one afternoon solidarity protest. And I went there and didn't know hardly anybody there. But then me going there and standing there at the arch that day turned into me coming back every single day, multiple times. And then honestly, that moment was so pivotal in my life and creating my political and social identity, I think, and my outlook. Like I know for a fact, like I would not be sitting here with you right now having this discussion if it wasn't for Carter Adams creating that Facebook event,
Random overlap. Well, I want to bring a few of our comments on the screen to encourage anyone who's watching. If you have a comment or question for Tim, please feel free to comment below the video and we'll be able to address it. Jeremy Field, I don't know if you know Jeremy. He's fantastic. He's one of our trustees. Jeremy said, I'm a big fan of your beard. I want to be clear here. Jeremy complimenting your beard is like Michael Jordan complimenting your jump shot or something. That's high praise. But then Jeremy went on to say that thanks to you and the other local leaders for the work on the forefront of this pandemic. And then Heidi Amelia jumped in to say hi, Tommy and Tim. So hi, Heidi. I want to go back to Jeremy's comment here. So, Tim, you have found yourself in leadership roles in a number of different ways over the years you've spent in Athens. Now you find yourself in that situation again on the forefront. Anyone who's grappling, I mean, all of us on Earth that are grappling with this global pandemic, it's affecting us in different ways. You're having to grapple with it as a human being and as a local leader. What's it like juggling those two twin pressures?
It is a lot. I mean, and juggling's the right word. Like yourself, I've got a very young daughter running around here, so having to care for her, but not only care for her, but I really feel in this one of the struggles they're in this whole thing has been this urge to protect her from it. and not just the physical way. I mean, that's obvious, right? Just like keeping her safe, but like the keeping her protected from the potential trauma from this and the stress and the anxiety. So I've been trying to like spend a lot of time with her and make this as normal day as possible every day, and then doing that, but also having to, do the work as a commissioner and trying to spread information and work on constituent needs and prepare for the grand number of meetings that we've had, and reading through all the legal briefs about that we have that's kind of instructing how exactly we can be helping our community. It's been a lot, and I say all that besides not even counting, just the personal self-care that is so important in times like these, if not in other times, of just making sure I'm giving myself enough time to decompress and
Right.
ensure that I myself am enjoying life and keeping myself sane and protected and buffered from the anxiety and stresses that come with this. Um, it is a challenge. I mean, thankfully, I have a fantastic, amazing wife who's been really helping, and my in-laws live here with us too, so they've been helping out when they can. But just honestly, the thing has been just taking every day, like just one day at a time.
Yeah.
Trying not to get overwhelmed with the grand magnitude of everything that's going on and what repercussions could be coming down the pike later on. Just putting things in front of me, working on those. When it comes to the commission work, we do have to at the whole time be looking down the road. So that's always a challenge. But I'm also blessed that uh, Mayor Gertz has been an amazing leader. I mean, just I don't think we could have been blessed with somebody better in that seat. And also the rest of the commission, even the ones that I don't necessarily agree with all the time. We've really been able to come together as a team and gel, and I think really support each other and improve each other, and really kind of be that counterbalance that we need in a time like this.
Yeah. Stephen Lush echoes part of what you just said, which is so Stephen said, proud to have Tim as my representative. This is a tough spot for everyone, but I'm glad the Athens community is acting more like we than me. And
Mm-hmm.
so, Tim, on that note, I want to just throw something at you. At Historic Athens, we have been really navigating this moment partially by looking to history. And part of that history was looking back at the history of the 1918 flu in Athens. There's an excellent article. I've been recommending it to everyone that can find it. If you go on redandblack.com and you look up Spanish flu 1918, you'll find that in 2018, they wrote a 100-year retrospective looking back at the 1918 flu. And one of the things that's so fascinating to look at is that even in 1918, Athens got ahead of the curve. We were quicker to quarantine. We had greater restrictions. We got our act together in a way that some surrounding counties were struggling to do. And as a result, the local media lauded how many more lives were saved, a low infection rate, a low mortality rate. On yesterday's program with Commissioner Link, we talked about the old expression that uh, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And so you see Athens in 1918 and Athens in 2020 behaving very similar ways. As Stephen just mentioned, Athens is acting more like we than me. What do you think's behind that? Why is that history rhyming again?
Um, I mean, I guess the part of the basic answer is just because we have um, a similar structure, so that's like there's only a few different ways that you could, and the extreme basic way that you could respond to this. I think that with Athens being, a university town, and maybe always having, even back then, and which is still true today, but probably actually even more so back then, I would imagine, without the ability to have the internet and as much uh, quick communication back then at that time, that the fact that the University of Georgia had experts and information available here within their own community, that they could actually, walk down to talk to somebody who maybe had studied these kind of things and had those resources available. I would imagine that a lot of smaller and other cities across the country did not have those resources available. So it was probably a lot tougher to actually understand and have a logical and an informed reaction early on back then. So I would say that's where I imagine that's why it happened back then compared to maybe other cities. And I think part of that's connected to now. But I also think it's just that our larger community is more informed, more engaged, I think. And thankfully, the local government right now is we prioritize that local engagement. We prioritize those connections to people. We prioritize making sure that we have a communication avenue happening with those individuals. So, I mean, we heard very early on from people, and we took that very seriously. I mean, I hold the opinion of my constituents in extreme high regard, and that they were asking for this early on. They took this very seriously, you know, and so I think that's probably the reason why it's been similar. I think the unfortunate thing is that the rest of the country's reaction to this has also been very similar to what it was in 1918. You know, there's a University of Michigan study that went ahead. This was actually done, I think, about 8 years ago, that analyzed a lot of the city's reactions during the 1918 pandemic, and especially focusing on their own sheltering in place, or whatever it was referred to back then, and safety and health measures. And you know, we had a number of cities, a majority of cities, pulled those kind of sheltering in place policies early. And because of that, a second wave of the pandemic came through. And actually, in 1918, had even more fatalities than it did during the first wave. But the study showed that there were some cities, St. Louis was one of the ones, who did not pull those and held those shelters in place for, I think it was about 12 weeks, steady. And they had a much smaller increase on that second wave, and therefore had a much lower number of deaths and illnesses compared to cities of similar size across the country. So it's unfortunate that while it's fortunate that Athens is repeating history there, or at least rhyming with it, it's very unfortunate that rest of the state of Georgia and a lot of the other country and our president is also rhyming to how those bodies and institutions reacted in 1918.
So in a moment, I'm going to pull up, we have two great questions / comments, one from Chris Dowd and one from Deborah Gonzalez. And so I want to make sure we get to those in just a second. But just lingering for one more moment with this topic we're talking about history rhyming. There's been some journalism recently that's explored as you mentioned, some of the negative rhyming. And one example given was, so in San Francisco around the time of the 1918 flu, there was this large pushback against public safety. And there was one public health official who really at the cost of their career almost held their ground. And what you saw was such a strong desire for a return to normalcy that a large group of people just kind of went back to living life the way they had it before. It became this tense standoff between the city and this public that really wanted to get back to normal. And reading through this and how it played out, it really felt similar, because at least online, and you know, since most of us are sheltering in place, that's where the conversation's happening now. You see those same things playing out, where there's conversations about safety versus liberty, overreaction, normalcy, almost accusations that, or in some cases, direct accusations that our public officials don't understand real life on the ground. You're someone who's defined your public career as being concerned with working class people that need social and economic and racial justice. What's it feel like to hear those accusations?
I mean, it feels crappy. Not just in this situation. That's honestly, that's the one thing that sucks about being an elected official. Just as a quick aside, this is something that I kind of grappled with recently, is that yeah, whenever you're working and trying so hard, and then you get these negative comments thrown at you sometimes, but obviously not a lot of thought behind it, that what they're being directed at is still a person, and it becomes difficult. And it's one of the reasons I think that I've seen, or one of the reasons possibly, that some elected officials end up like really kind of breaking that connection with their constituents, making it where they're not as easy to be as easily accessible, or not as transparent, because they don't want to deal with those things. And so it's one of the things that I've just had to like realize, you know what, in this game, you just have to do it, because otherwise, if you try to shelter yourself from it, you're sheltering yourself from all the important, extremely important communications that come from your constituents. And you know what? And even those harsher criticisms are still important to still help shape decision making. So,
Yeah.
but back to the regular question. Yeah, it's tough, and I try to communicate to people that those things are very much still in my thought process through this. Um, people's freedom and liberty is extremely important to me, and it's definitely one of the things I hold closely to, and I sometimes maybe even disagree with other Democrats on, because those things are important to me. And definitely the well-being of working class Athenians and people is one of my highest priorities. And I think that it's just looking at the issue maybe a little bit differently, and really digging into it. And so I know a lot of the criticisms have been around the effect on the economy, and it's true. I mean, this is having and is going to continue to have a devastating effect on our economy, and one that we really can't quite measure yet, which is scary. It's very frightening. Um, and but I think that we have to be careful with how we react to that fear and to that problem. Um, I was actually talking to some folks earlier today on this issue, and they were upset that, they're like, well, these businesses need to be open. We need to, it's essential for people to be able to work, and hold a job. And my reaction to this is like, well, the things that are essential are the ability for those people to have food and shelter and safety and health care and education for themselves and their children, and so many other things. And the job is just one way to finance those things. But what's sad is that as a society, we're presenting this as that we have no other options to provide those essential needs, other than to make somebody go back to work and put them in danger, of getting a dangerous disease, and putting their workers in danger. We as a society and as a government have to figure out other ways to supply those needs in an adequate way that maybe operates outside of our usual thought of a capitalist system. We have to be more flexible than that. We have to be more prepared than that. So I'm happy to have those conversations and keep them going, but and they are complex. But I feel like it's not an either or. We easily can make sure that we are keeping the safety and health of our constituents as the foremost priority, while also ensuring that all of our workers and businesses are also financially buoyed through this crisis. I think I lost you.
Yeah, I'm back. Hello. I live in Newtown, a lovely historic neighborhood. Obviously, I love historic neighborhoods, but the train was going by, so I thought it was better that you hear mute than a loud train blast. But I did want to say that I did share Jennifer's comment here. She said, "Very well said, Tim." Thanks for sharing, Jennifer. Let's turn to Chris's earlier comment. And once again, if you want to comment or add any questions, just do so below the video. So Chris Dowd chimed in to say, how's the budget process going this year? can we still push for progressive priorities in times like this?
The way the process is going is different, very different. Um, uh, but we are right in the midst of it. I mean, that's one of the crazy things about this, right? Is that as a county government, all levels of government, they're having to deal with this pandemic, but we're also having just to do the regular everyday work we would always would have been doing, and the budget being, arguably one of the most important aspects of that. So we're getting it done. It's time to do it a little bit different. The the process is going back to my previous comments. It's just it's a little bit harder to predict than normal. That's we have amazing staff with ACC, and our financial department usually is able to put together some very good assumptive kind of places that we would be over the next year, so that we can use those as markers as we create this budget. And they've done that for us this year, but they've had to do some alternatives, kind of based on, well, if these things happen, then this might be closer where we are. If all of these things happen, this might. So it's happening more on a spectrum of possibilities, which is a little bit more difficult to do. And so we're trying to change the process a little bit more to adapt to that. So one of the things we did is we normally would be passing our budget in the first Tuesday of June. And since that time period is what has been talked about, us being able to be possibly on the backside of a peak of cases, potentially, some of the models show that right around that time, that's going to be a crucial time to predict what the future is going to be like. So because of that, we've actually pushed back passing the budget by just a few weeks to give us a little bit more time, so that we can have a little bit more data to analyze before we actually pass our final budget. On the second part of that, can we still push for progressive priorities in times like these? Yes, the answer is yes. While I maybe adapted some of my budget requests, I am still going to be pushing those. Some of these things tie directly in to us being able to react to a pandemic, because I think a big part of what this pandemic is showing us is that there's a lot of things that should have been different for a long time, and now that we're in this extreme crisis, those past failures have become even more obvious. And so there's a lot of policies that we should have put in place a long time ago, or we should have in place in the future, that are also going to help us through this crisis. And one of those things is adequate transportation for everyone. So I am still pushing for us to go into our second year phase of our fare-free transit expansion. And that would be free nights and weekends, which is only going to cost us about $60,000 for a year.
Wow.
But that would be a huge benefit to, say, like late shift workers, who are actually some of our most common workers on transit after 6 p.m. And so I'm pushing for that still. I'm also pushing for us to expand our crisis intervention officer program that we have with Athens-Clarke County Police Department, so that we have more specialized officers whose first foremost priority is de-escalation and crisis intervention. So I'm asking for us to be expanding that, and also for us to be bringing in all of our EMS services for 911 calls in-house, so that our 911 operators are handling all of our emergency calls, including for EMS, which is right now being handled by a private company. I'm pushing for those things plus more. And I think it's just important for us to think that oftentimes coming out of crises like this, oftentimes the government's response is austerity. And I think that's the incorrect response. I think history has actually shown that that's the incorrect response. And while tightening of the belt definitely sometimes just happens because you have less revenue to work with, I think it's even more important that we focus our limited funds and revenue to programs and services that are going to benefit everyone, especially low-income folks that might be struggling. So I think it's actually more important for us to focus on those progressive programs at a time like this, even more so than times where we have plenty of money.
Okay. Tim, I'm going to bring us back here in just 1 second to Deborah's question. If you don't mind, I'm just going to very quickly thank our annual sponsors, just briefly. So if you've just tuned in, and once again, we want to thank everyone that's submitting questions. maybe maybe you're here because you're a big supporter of Tim Denson. Maybe you've never interacted with our organization before. We just want to take this opportunity to thank all of our annual sponsors that have kept us going, especially through times like these. You can see a list of them on the screen. Last week's program was brought to you by some of those same annual sponsors, Gary and Joan Birch. This week, Dan and Corey Delamater. But we also want to let you know that our work is supported and has been supported for more than 5 decades just by average regular Athenians giving what they can. You can become a member with our organization for as little as $5 a month. And so if you visit historicathens.com, you can support us as a sponsor or a member. I know these are tough times. We'll just mention that it's our belief that Athens operates best with a clear understanding of where we've been, what we've done, what we could do better. And we think that history matters. And if you believe that's true and you'd like to support our efforts on education, advocacy, our work with Hands on Athens, which provides direct home repairs for low to moderate income homeowners in historic homes, or our work operating the Athens Welcome Center. If any of those are things that you want to support, please consider visiting historicathens.com. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we depend on people like you to keep going. Also, just as one last note on Historic Athens, in June, we will be hosting our 51st annual Preservation Awards. Right now, we're accepting nominations for Preservation Award winners or Places in Peril nominees. So if you have a strong, passionate opinion about a local historic place you think is endangered, or a historic project that you're really proud of, even if we accept publications, we accept preservation projects, please consider submitting a nomination at historicathens.com. So that out of the way, we'll get back to Tim, and specifically, we're going to get back to Deborah's question. Tim, while you were speaking, there was some of the folks in the audience that were giving you some attaboys. So I just want to bring those up. Deborah Gonzalez had said, that's right, we can't go back to normal. We need some resets. Lindsay Brandon earlier had said, wow, that was spot on. Perfect, Tim. And so I want to thank all those folks. Daniel chimed in to say that you're doing very important leadership work and your help to our community is appreciated. So I wanted to make sure we shared those things. Let's go ahead and I see Broderick just dropped a question in. So Broderick, will certainly get to your question here in a moment. Matt Davenport, yours as well. But for right now, I want to bring up Deborah Gonzalez. So earlier in the program, Deborah had put this question below, this question and comment. She said, hi, Tim, thanks for all you do. She wanted to know, what is one thing you've learned about yourself because of your work as a commissioner during this time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say one of the things is even more so, and this is something I've always tried to do, but even more so, the importance of just being able to put aside disagreements and be able to focus on the larger good for the community. And I think as operating as a commission, we've definitely been able to do that. I've been so impressed by our staff and the fellow commissioners and how we'll be able to come together, and even constituents who have been very vocal at times about how they disagree with me on stuff. We've had some great conversations about the best way to move forward in this extreme time, and that's it's a hard thing to do, but it's so important to be able to separate yourself from that. And I guess to add one extra little thing, that two things came to mind, that question. The other thing, this is something that I've had to deal with in my own life at times, and I think all of us do to a level, and it's something you never figure out, but you just always work on. And I guess it's sometimes called imposter syndrome or whatever it is, which for whatever reason I've never been a fan of that phrase, but this idea that somehow, I think we think there's a lot of times in government, at least I did, about elected officials before I came into it, that somehow these folks had some kind of special power, special ability to, or special knowledge that got them to be able to do these things that just seemed so unattached to myself or my understanding of things. And really what it comes down to is just having to step up to the opportunity, step up to the challenge. And that's again why I think it's so important that we do this as a community, and that we, all the elected officials, including myself, are constantly listening to others, is because everybody has the ability to help us get through this. And sometimes it's going to be more challenging than others, some specific tasks. Me having to read through the dozens of legal briefs and this legalese that I don't understand, but just having to sit myself down and read over a number of times, however many times I need to, before I get it and ask the right questions to our lawyers until I understand it. We all have that ability, and if we're all utilizing that ability as a community, it increases our ability to get through this even better. And again, I think that goes back to the main question of why I think that we've had a better response maybe than other places do, is because we have so many people stepping up to this challenge and helping together.
Great. I want to go to Broderick's question. So Broderick said, and you'll only be able to see part of this on the screen, but I'll make sure to read through the whole thing. Broderick wrote, "What's up, Tim? How are the Neighbors Helping Neighbors and community core programs going to work? Will this, in your opinion, address our most struggling neighbors? I heard Blaine mention hiring people to do part-time community work in one of the sessions. Is this a possible workaround to the gratuity clause?" So I know that there's a few different things you might want to punch through, but where would you like to start with that, Tim?
Broderick's completely reading the whole thing right, because all those questions are totally tied together to me. So it makes sense what he's asking there. The Neighbors Helping Neighbors, the Athens-Clarke, there's a few things that we're talking about doing, and really what they are is it's their public works programs that will be done on a county level. We'll have potentially have things like this: cleaning up litter, planting flowers and shrubbery, maybe doing some basic landscaping kind of work. It's some basic kind of things that will be helping to beautify our community and help improve our infrastructure that the entire community benefits from. And to do this, we'll be able to hire individuals here in our community who maybe are struggling financially, maybe have not the best work record, so it's harder for them to get a job, or there might be people who are just out of work because of this crisis or because of other reasons, and they would be able to get paid a good wage. For this program, I'm going to be fighting and ensuring that we paying people at least $15 an hour who get involved in the program like this. And so they'll be bringing home a paycheck while at the same time doing pivotal work for their neighbors or the community. I mean, some of this might be involved just doing food delivery to people who are housebound during this crisis. Doing integral work, and it's work that oftentimes we think of as volunteer work, and that's because so many people want to help so much that they do volunteer their time. But we should be monetarily valuing this work, going off and ensuring that your neighbors have food to eat so that they can live through a pandemic. That is, to me, extremely valuable work. And so therefore we should value it as a community and monetarily value it that way. So that's what we're thinking about doing here. And so, it definitely can help some of our most struggling neighbors. I think this is going to be one of a number of different programs I think we'll put in place. Broderick does ask, is this tied into the reason we're doing it this way, because of the limitations of the gratuities clause? And at least part of the answer is yes. And just to give everybody a little bit of background, the gratuities clause is part of our state constitution that the courts have interpreted, that applies to local governments along with the state government, saying that we cannot freely give money or anything of value or alleviate debt without getting kind of the equivalent community beneficial direct return for that investment. So we can't just give something, we can't give a gift, we can't give a gratuity away. And to get around those things, we have to be very creative sometimes. Because at a time like this, honestly, we do need to be able to be in a situation where we can give away money. People need it. But right now we can't. So we're coming up with some creative workarounds like this. And I love this workaround though, because I love the idea of public works projects, because not only are we making sure people have the money they need to live a decent life, but they're also, again, doing valuable work for the entire community.
Great. Tim, we've got about 10 minutes left in the program, and there's three things I want to hit kind of rapid fire here as we wrap up our time together. And these are questions that we've been asking for each of our guests, both for today's purpose and for the purpose of folks looking back on this. So, if you're anything like most people I know, you're probably trying to spend the few extra dollars you have, trying to support our local small businesses, including our restaurants. There are a lot of my favorite places that I can't go eat right now because they're protecting their workers and they're protecting the public by staying closed. I know I miss brunch at the place. I know while it's not a locally owned business, I miss the All-Star Special at the Waffle House a lot. That's like something I can't get. Going to the grill late at night. Are there any things like that for you that you miss right now that you're looking forward to have back?
Yeah, I honestly, about a week ago, had a super vivid dream where I just got to go to Hilo and hang out and have beers. Like, I think that's one of the things most, like, it's just one of my comfort safe spots, you know. So definitely, like, yeah, going to Hilo and getting some fries and having some beers and being able to hang out with friends and talk politics, and or
Yeah.
going to a normal bar and just running into some of my constituents, and getting to sit around and have discussions. Going to Bear Hollow Zoo with my daughter,
Yeah.
which we usually do a couple times a month. She was asking about, brought up how we fed the bears one time at a birthday party at Bear
Yeah.
Hollow Zoo this morning, things like that. And honestly, it's the simple of my usual routine in the mornings on my work days. My Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but like kind of my work days is going in one of my favorite coffee shops, Sips or Hendershots or Jittery Joe's or Walkers, and kind of just sitting down there, digging in and doing a bunch of work there and having meetings and stuff. And it's just it's a wonderful way to be able to work, especially during spring weather like this. I miss that. And and also just being able to walk our beautiful downtown. It's I miss a lot. I miss the people more so that are associated with all those things. But it just shows that all of us are having to do some sacrifices. Those are the easy things. Whenever I think about the struggles that some of those business owners, right, those businesses I love, the struggles that they're having to go through right now, and the hoops they're jumping through just to make sure that they can take care of their own workers,
Yeah.
really inspires me. But I just can't wait to get back out there.
Yeah, well, first of all, just I'll give some amens there. Salchipapas at Hilo. I need to get salchipapas at Hilo. They were the only place in town that I knew of I could get a decent Chicago dog, and so I've been making them at home, which has been its own thing. But also, yeah, as a dad, the Bears' birthday party. This was gonna be the first one I was ever gonna take Nora to. I couldn't do that; it was canceled. We were really excited. Nora's my 2-year-old. For those of you that are just tuning in, and we were planning on having her do her first ever leisure service program. She was going to do swim lessons this summer, but that session has had to be canceled. And
Yeah.
so, yes, as a parent, these are, it's sad to see your kid not be able to have some of those experiences.
As a quick shout out on
Yeah.
that, ACC Leisure Services has moved
Yes.
all their gymnastics programs online, and they are now free.
Wow.
They are free to sign up for. So any parents out there, go to ACC Leisure Services page, go to the gymnastics. You can sign them up. The teachers are doing amazing things that you can set up in your living room. We've had my daughter doing it.
That's great.
It's a great resource.
Well, we're excited about that. Kent Kilpatrick's going to be one of our guests on a later program. We look forward to talking to them about
Great.
The excellent leisure services they're doing. So we're going to go to the last couple of things here. Let me just see. I got a LOL. Oh, a high-low corn dog.
Yeah.
Shout out from Jeremy Field. Mandy Dixon said this was fantastic. Thanks, y'all. So we appreciate that, Mandy. And yes, Jeremy, I love a corn dog. Who doesn't love a corn dog? I guess people that love themselves and like to eat well.
That's true.
Tim, last two questions here. One is, so one of the discussion, part of what we do, not all of what we do, but a big part of what we do is historic preservation. And one of the discussions that I'm hearing in the preservation community is a concern, which is when you come out of an event like this, especially when you come out of a recession, uh, previously safe historic spaces can suddenly become endangered because people are so hungry for development, that suddenly you bulldoze that old thing just to put something new in its place. And so we're anticipating a time of great vulnerability for a lot of our historic sites around Athens. The question we've been asking each of our guests are, what are some of your favorite historic sites, ones that you hope will be protected, ones that if somebody's going back and watching this video here in Athens, 50, 60 years from now, what are some of the historic sites that you hope are still standing? Does anything come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, again, a lot of that's just like downtown. I mean, I've now lived here for 16 years,
Mm,
and it's still so much fun to be able to just walk downtown, walk Clayton
mm,
Street, walk Washington Street, and just like, especially if I'm by myself, put some music in the headphones and I walk around. And like, I'll always find different little details on
mm,
some of these historic buildings as I'm walking through. If I'm walking through Hot Corner or walking out in Clayton, I'm sitting out in front of walkers, just looking at kind of like the skyline at the top of the buildings. There's so much beauty and history, and just like, I mean, it is. I really enjoy doing this. I'm like just thinking about the craftsmanship and the people who did that stuff. Made it by hand and placed those bricks and went to do those extra touches of sculpting the stone to have such and placing it in a way. Um,
mm.
it's 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 something that's so easy for us to take for granted. But again, if we just like stop for a second, take it in, it's amazing thing to be able to just enjoy. And it's very important to me to make sure that that our daughters and our daughters' children are able to enjoy that too. Um, so to me, one of the big things is our downtown. And again, like talking about how even in a pandemic, the regular work of our government can't stop. I am looking forward to being able to vote and pass the West Downtown Athens Historic District, so that we can ensure that it's here, and so that the kind of fears that you bring up don't happen down there. I think it's also just a good time for us to be to maybe taking stock of these things and ensuring that we are taking care of them. Again, austerity is not a good time for us to be a good way for us to go from this. So I would like to see us definitely investing in those things. I have the St. James Baptist Cemetery is
Mm.
just on the backside of my house, a little ways, not even maybe a quarter mile away. And during this time where I can't really be doing a lot of things, I've gone down there just to help clear some brush as the community's been slowly working on that. And I'm like, well, I get some time now every once in a while in the afternoon, so going over there doing that kind of stuff. So I hope that that at this kind of time we take this time to really again take stock of those historic elements and appreciate them even more so, and come out of this even more steadfast that we're going to take care of them.
Excellent. Thanks, Tim. And for those of you that just tuned in, I want to just emphasize St. James Cemetery, which we're anticipating a nomination from a local community group. We're waiting for hopefully one of two for this year's Place in Peril list. St. James Cemetery is a project that you've been dedicated to for some time. It's one that we've been working on for some time, but it's a really remarkable cemetery that we look forward to sharing more about. If you follow us on Historic Athens here on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, expect to see more about that in the coming weeks. But Tim, the last question we've been asking everyone is, for the sake of future researchers, folks, maybe 100 years from now, if people are looking back in the same way that Red and Black looked back at that 1918 flu, what do you want future generations to know about this moment in Athens?
They put people first. They put the people of Athens first. They put their physical health, their economic health, and their well-being first and foremost. They remembered that economies only exist to take care of people, that they don't
Mm,
exist without those people, and that I want to definitely be thought that this was a community reaction that got us through this, and it was community being compassionate and thoughtful and loving, and again, just put people first. And so far, that's what I've seen. I mean, that's gonna be my memories of this. I've been brought to tears just thinking about how some of these people reacted and how helpful people have and they stepped up. Um, that while this is maybe a dire time and one of the scariest times that I've lived through, it's definitely also one of the most hopeful times I've ever lived
Very good. Well, thank you for sharing that. And Tim, we know how busy you are, so thanks for sharing time with us to be part of this today.
through. Yeah,
Um, we we also want to thank every one of you who are busy and dealing with your own stress for joining us. We really appreciated the questions and participation. Tomorrow we're going to have Aaron Barger with Envision Athens on, and so we look forward to talking to Aaron. Please feel free to, if you're available, to chime in each day. We're going to be here at 1 o'clock every weekday until June 26th, talking to different community leaders. If there's someone you're passionate about seeing interviewed, feel free to just let us know. You can email me, tommy@historicathens.com, or you can send us a direct message. But the biggest thing is we want to record this moment accurately and explore it and give you a chance to express your voice. So, Tim, thank you again for being with us. Thanks for everyone. Tim, we'll talk to you shortly. Thank you so much, everyone.